Our second reading comes from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 9, verses 18 through 24. Once, when Jesus was praying alone, with only the disciples near him, he asked them, "Who do the crowds say that I am?" They answered, "John the Baptist, but others Elijah, and still others that one of the ancient prophets has arisen." He said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" Peter answered, "The Messiah of God." He sternly ordered and commanded them not to tell anyone, saying, "The Son of Man must undergo great suffering and be rejected by the elders, chief priests, and scribes, and be killed, and on the third day be raised." Then he said to them all, "If any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake will save it." This is the word of the Lord. So, who is God to you kind of sounded like an easy right? I mean, that's kind of the big question that Christianity is all about, isn't it? I've had a while to figure this one out, but turns out it's somewhat of a hard question to answer. I've heard a lot of things about God. Every week in church I hear that God is forgiving, God is loving, God is powerful and cares for us immensely. It's a comforting thought that the Almighty doesn't just love people, He loves me. It seems like that's hard to believe sometimes, though, because for every time I feel like I understand, every time I feel like I see the plan God has for me, I have at least one time where I couldn't understand. I'm certain all of you have felt the same way, sitting alone asking God why something happened or why something didn't, wondering why, if God loves you, this was His plan at all. And for a while, I concluded there must not be a God, or if there was, He had bigger plans than me. I have a lot of friends who think that way, and I understand why. God's infinite love isn't always very obvious, and that's frustrating. But I think asking God why He planned something a certain way isn't a very useful question, because in the end, I don't think God has a plan. God may have set the rules for our world, but I think He's more referee than coach. I have free will. If I didn't, I would know God's plan because God would tell me, wouldn't He? So I don't think God is some kind of eternal puppet master. But I've also heard a lot about God's hate. I don't just mean the guy on the street corner on a soapbox yelling about eternal damnation. I never really took those guys seriously. I felt like they kind of missed the point. After all, I'd read and heard all my life about how much Jesus loved us and how much God loved us. He was forgiving and loving and caring, but then I cracked open the other half of the Bible. The one that I usually tended to steer clear from, the Old Testament. And going in cold, it was a shock because God seemed bloodthirsty and hypocritical. He let the Israelites stray from His word and then punished them with exile for their weakness. He told them to spread the message of God to the people, but then told them to murder a bunch of other tribes. He told them they had divine right to a holy land, but people were already there. And this was troubling to me. It shook me to my core. It seemed like those people on the street corner and those people who justified war and slavery and oppression because of God, they might be right. I didn't like to think they were right because I had been told God was good. But it seemed like when you got down to it, He was mixed at best and downright barbaric at worst. That gave me pause for thought, and honestly, it still does. I still find it hard to stomach there's some huge being in the sky that totally loves us until we anger His tribe, and then He decides to burn us all with holy fire or turn someone into a pillar of salt for looking at the destruction He causes. But what I do know is this: there is love in this world that is so counterproductive. Evolutionarily, it makes the most sense to look out for yourself and no one else, and to screw over anyone to make you, and thus your offspring, more likely to survive. But that's not how we work. Humans give to each other, sometimes when we don't have enough to give without loss. We sacrifice ourselves for our friends and our family. I've seen people jump into rivers to save a dog. Tell me, what kind of advantage does that give us? Love is such a nonsensical, idiotic, downright counterproductive response in our hearts. But it's there, and we've kept it there, and that's the evidence I need for God. that we as a people are willing to sacrifice ourselves out of love for others. That's what reminds me, even when it's dark and I feel like I'm alone, like no one's with me, that God is with me. His love transcends reason and sense and logic. His love was passed down into all of us, and if you look for it, you'll find it.
Hello, my name is Trenton Sunmaker, and I am a senior at Ben Franklin High School. For as long as I can remember, I've been coming to this church. As for as long as I can remember, I have doubted, questioned, and believed in my faith in God. When I think about who God is to me, I think of God as a guide in my life, who has watched over me and guided me through the good times and the bad times. Let me give you an example of how God has been a guide in my life. I was about 4 years old when I was driving a toy electric Jeep down Lower Line Street on the sidewalk, and my parents were walking right behind me, and they thought that I would turn left onto the St. Charles sidewalk, but instead, for some reason, 4-year-old me just kept going straight into the street. And my parents yelled and screamed like, "Oh no, Trent's about to get hit by a car." But a runner who, she was a track runner, and she scooped me right off out of the car and into safety. And maybe I wasn't the smartest 4-year-old, but I made it out of that situation somehow. Or I could tell you about the time I was in 3rd grade when I choked on a mint in the hallway, and it just happened that my friend's mom, who was a doctor, came and did the Heimlich on me, and the mint flew right out of my mouth onto the ground. Or I could tell you about the time I fell into my friend's pool when I was 6, but I had swimming lessons a week before, so I was trained to swim. I feel like I've had my fair amount of close calls in my childhood that I may not even remember. But I've begun to believe that I'm here for a reason, and this is just one way I see God as a guide in my life. A really big way that I see God as a guide in my life is through my faith journey in our youth group here at SCAPC. Starting in 6th grade, my first year, I wasn't really interested in the talks about God or Jesus. I just really wanted to hang out with my friends. So I invited about 7 of my friends from Lusher to come and say, "Hey, this is a place that you're welcome. This is a place that you can come here and you can just hang with friends." But once those 7 people started inviting other people, and I really had a big group of friends there, I really started to focus on what Andy was telling us, and I really started to just understand what it means to be a follower of Jesus. And so this youth group has developed my faith up until now, where back in 6th grade, once I really started to focus in on my faith, I started asking Andy, and I started asking Dr. Frampton. I started asking him hard questions like, why would God allow cancer to have such a personal effect on our lives and our families' lives? Why would God allow school shootings or hurricanes that devastate communities? It was at this point in my faith that I really started to pay attention. And my faith has developed up until now where I'm a senior. I try to be a leader and help the middle schoolers develop their faith in God because I remember what it was like to be in their shoes. I feel as if God has been a guide to me in my faith through my journey at SCAPC, weaving me through the doubts and the good times. Finally, I see God as a guide through my academic and sports life. God might guide me to be a stronger person by challenging me with a hard teacher or a hard coach. And I know that it hasn't been this way for everyone, but my faith and my experience at this church has been a very euphoric experience. And as I am applying to colleges and everything in my life is about to change, my relationship with God is something that I want to keep constant. The big message that I want to leave you here with today is that I know that there is a plan in place for all of us, and as long as we work as hard as we can, giving everything that we do 100%, the man upstairs will work everything out for us. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Stella Tasker, and I've been involved with SCAPC through their youth group for 7 years. In this time, I've gone on 3 SCAPC mission trips, participated in 4 White Elephant Christmas gift exchange parties, been to countless high school small group food excursions, and talked or sang in 5 youth Sundays. I now have the honor of helping to lead my last Youth Sunday with you all today and talking to you all a little bit more about my experience worshiping with this church. For this sermon, we were asked to read Luke 9, verses 18 through 24. This was essentially Jesus being recognized by Peter as the Messiah after many other disciples had only referred to him as John the Baptist or Elijah. Possibly the most important historical figure took it upon himself to ask this one man, "Who am I to you?" tasking him with the most difficult job of all, identity. This reminded me a lot of something I've struggled with for a long time in my life. Who am I to myself as compared to who I am to others around me? I may think one way about my personality, but those close to me may see me as an entirely different person. Today I would like to share with you all first the Della Tasker seen by others versus the Della Tasker I see in myself every day. This past week, I went around and asked my peers, "Who am I to you?" and noted the results that stuck out to me. To most, I am a dancer. I am a triplet with 2 brothers. I'm a good student, and I try hard in all my classes. I'm nice, but maybe I'm too shy to be approachable to strangers. Many admitted that it's hard to get to know me because I'm not open enough with others about my feelings. I avoid confrontation and am oversensitive, according to my brother. On a lighter note, my best friend calls me pretty and thinks dancing has made me more graceful. My mother thinks I'm fearless. In actuality, I'm a nervous wreck. I'm not the smartest or most diligent student in any of my classes. I react immensely to situations that would not usually invoke any kind of harsh response. My mind races, I overthink every aspect of my day, and I spend so long probing small past events and worrying about my future that I don't find myself very existent in the present. I'm tall, lanky, and awkward. I get very uneasy in almost all social situations, and ironically, I worry too much about others' opinions of me. I fear the possibility of backlash or judgment to anything I say so often that I refrain from speaking my mind in front of people. It's hard to imagine that there's such a big difference between one self they show to others and the self they internalize as their own. What I've finally begun to understand is that this gap in my identity shouldn't have the effect that it does on my life, and that these thoughts have emotionally influenced my own stability. Earlier this year, I was diagnosed with chronic anxiety and obsessive compulsive personality disorder, giving medical validation to my incessant states of worry. After years of thinking that it was normal to be so self-conscious and distant from others, and that everyone, not just me, worries about who they are and how they seem to others, I was shocked. It was crazy to think that I wasn't supposed to feel this nervous all the time. I had felt like my wrong self, and it was like I had to learn how to be a person again. Since then, I've been seeking help, trying to branch out more socially, and experimenting with feeling more comfortable in my own body. In my senior year, I've successfully become more secure and self-confident, but I definitely still struggle with certain anxieties today. Out of the many stress factors in my life, one of the things I have constantly overthought is my faith. What does it mean for me to follow Christ, both as an individual and among others? Who am I to him, and who is he to me? I believe I show my spirituality in many ways, such as how I serve and share with others, but I've never wholeheartedly believed that I'm a spiritual person. I don't live in a very religious household. I don't go to church regularly, and especially this year, the only time I've had for any kind of worship is high school small group every 2 weeks. I find myself thinking that this isn't enough for Christ, and that therefore I'm not enough for Christ. But there is no set script of faith. He only asks that I take up my cross daily and follow him. We all do this in serving in his name, and even being here today proves our loyalty to our own daily crosses, or as our duty as Christians. This right now is a priority. He ensures that I am his priority as his follower, just as he ensures it for all of you. As his disciples, we are promised his love and care just as long as he still presides over our lives. I may display my religion much differently compared to the other people around me, but it is the ways in which we each celebrate Christ, both separately and collectively, that bring us together as a Christian community and define us as followers in Christ. Thank you.